Hey, I'm ArcPCer Aaron, and this is my guide for players who want to learn the basic and intermediate skills required for completing first map in the Movement Hub servers on R5 Reloaded. If you do not have R5 or would also like to join others in the Movement communities, there will be links in the descriptions for the relevant Discord servers. There are great guides and tools available in these Discord servers, and installing R5 has never been easier as they've released a self-contained launcher installer with one of the latest updates, as well as this map getting updated as well. A big thanks to DFPS, Cafe FPS, Joe Fox, AZ, Loy, and the many others for their work in bringing these servers to the community, and thanks to Treery and Jay for their work in creating these movement gems. I will not be going over specifically every movement mechanic in the game, but rather the ways to pass each checkpoint in the course, and if there are relevant alternate ways to complete each area, I'll go over them. I wanted to make this guide as I learned how to do the map by watching the records and speedruns, and it's difficult to sometimes parse what the purpose of every key press was and how to break down each mechanic. In this guide, I will be referencing specific movement mechanics. If you're unfamiliar with these mechanics, there are plenty of guides available online for each specific mechanic, but I will do my best to explain the relevant inputs in the relevant sections. Something to clarify for this guide is that everyone should use the keybinds they find most comfortable for themselves. I personally crouch with spacebar and scroll up for jump and scroll down for Tapstrafe, and plenty of people don't go anywhere near those binds. When I am discussing inputs, I will discuss the inputs as a forward input rather than a W input, and similarly for crouch and space, I will not reference the specific keys attached to them, as I think that does not particularly help with understanding the purposes behind the movement. Here you're going to just do some wall climbs. Make sure to engage with the wall with the forward and jump input, and hold the relevant directional input for the way you want to go. You can hold forward and your directional input for the whole duration of the movement if that is more comfortable for you. You can remove a lot of the climbing animation by fatigue bouncing onto each ledge. With practice you can turn this into a very smooth and clean process. You can also start on the upper ledge if you're going for a timed run. In order to start the fatigue bounce, you need to jump straight in the air, then jump again while looking at the wall and pressing forward as you engage. Once engaged, you will perform a wall bounce, letting go forward and jumping, looking and strafing for where you want to go. With good landings, you don't even need to perform the pre-jump on the second ledge and can go right into the second wall bounce as you'll still be in jump fatigue, and this is a quick way to finish the first checkpoint. Checkpoint 2 is pretty straightforward and consists of a series of jumps and wall bounces. The simplest way to do this checkpoint is to hop jump the first gap, wall bounce the second gap, and then wall bounce the third gap. The wall bounce timing on the last jump is pretty tight, and you need to minimize wall time as much as possible. And if you want to do this section a bit faster, you can start the area with a super glide into the two wall bounces. Some people may struggle with the third wall bounce, so you can also U-bounce or jump out of the wall ride. Slide jump into the wall while holding forward in a directional. Let go of forward while keeping the directional held down. Then after falling slightly, reclimb with forward, and then once climbing upwards again, you've now set yourself up for the ability to get a bounce off the wall, so you just let go of forward while holding the directional and do a jump input to finish up the checkpoint. Checkpoint 3 is probably where most new movement players will struggle to be consistent. It requires a fatigue bounce off the wall and a tap strafe back into the ledge above, and the timing can be tricky to learn. Start with getting consistent fatigue bounces, then add a backwards input in order to bring yourself farther off the wall. Once you are consistently not bonking your head, you can start to add the tap strafe, which will bring you back towards the ledge. Air strafing as well here can help you out of the bounce in order to correct yourself when grabbing the ledge. I recommend doing this towards the center of the wall so that you have more room for air out of the bounce, and I personally find a run-up start with a jump to set the fatigue bounce on the previous platform more consistent. This is the first real U-bounce in the obstacle course and will be a relevant skill for a lot of the map. Again, in order to get the jump for the U-bounce, you cannot be pressing a forward input. This means that your input will be forward and a directional input to engage the wall. Let go of forward while your directional input is engaged, and when you start to fall, climb again with your forward input, and then let go of forward and do a jump input, very similar to normal wall bounce. You then transition to another U-bounce. For both of these, you can choose which side you're more comfortable on, whether that be your left or your right side, but you will need to be able to do both sides in order to complete the course. You can also add in a super glide at the beginning of checkpoint 4 for extra momentum, and note that when doing this, engaging with the wall does not require a W input as you've already jumped. You can then wall bounce the left hand wall of checkpoint 5 to speed this area up. Checkpoints 6, 7, and 8 are slide jumps into 180 tap strafe wall bounces. It's important not to be holding crouch or W when going for the bounce, as that will kill your jump distance or completely prevent it. For this checkpoint, you will slide under the railings in front of you, Jump while tap strafing and holding your preferred directional to airstrafe into the wall, engage with the wall, and then press the opposite directional and wall bounce to the ledge. This is another U-bounce with them being chained together, pretty similar to checkpoints 4 and 5. If you did do those checkpoints with U-bounces, this will just force you to use both sides. Again, slide jump into the wall, engage while holding forward and the relevant directional, let go of forward while keeping the directional held, and as you start to fall, press forward again, and then let go of forward with the directional still held and perform a jump and strafe onto the next platform. This is another tricky one and forces you to understand what the inputs are actually doing and will really test your consistency. The first U-bounce is pretty standard based on the previous ones you've done. Engage with the slide jump and then jump off the wall after getting the climb back up it. You'll then need to turn and airstrafe and look towards the wall behind you. Engage it with the forward and the side input, and this time you need to keep forward engaged, and once you start to climb up out of the wall slide, you can then let go of W and jump for the next ledge. I tried to aim for the close 4 bolts that make a rectangle on the first wall, and then aim for just under the 4 bolts on the second wall as I airstrafe towards it. This is also a U-bounce, but instead of moving in a direction, you're just pushing yourself backwards. The same principles as before apply here. Simply slide jump off the platform, ideally with coyote timing, where your feet have left the platform but you can still jump. Engage with the wall, and as you start to slide down and climb up, let go of forward and jump, trying to look and grab the ledge behind you. These are U-bounces into strafes onto the platforms beside you. For the most part, the first two feel somewhat comfy, but the last one can be a bit tricky as you must tap strafe into the initial climb. Again, if you jump while holding forward out of the U-bounce, you will not reach the distance needed, and make sure when engaged with the wall you are not holding crouch. After leaving the wall, you need to use your directional inputs to airstrafe towards the ledge that you need to grab. Some tips for the final platform are to make sure that you are fully looking at the wall or the tap strafe. I'd recommend just practicing the tap strafe into the wall, getting the wall right to help improve consistency, and then find the angles and timings that work well for you there, and then add in the bounce at the end. This is a combination of checkpoint 3 and 12. You'll start with a coyote jump, jumping once it feels like your body has left the platform, then perform a U-bounce and grab the ledge above you. A backwards input as you jump off helps again here, and then tap straight forwards after you get closer to the edge. The coyote jump helps to keep you low at the start of the climb and prevents you from bonking your head, and I usually aim for about halfway up the edge that I'm climbing. Checkpoint 17 is a new addition and requires you to convert your fall speed into directional momentum, avoiding the landing stun, by using the wall and the angled platform. Once you get enough momentum, you will slide across the platform and then wall bounce back to where you started the course and finish the map. For the first part, I found 2 different setups that work well for me. I line myself up with the middle of the platform I am on and just sprint forward. As I fall, I input 2 or 3 left directionals depending on how far from the wall I am as I fall towards it. My other setup is to aim about a quarter of the way down the top of the far angled girder. I found that this limits the amount of left directionals I needed to press, and if you find yourself grabbing the ledge as you run forwards, you're looking too far left. Note that when you are falling, you will get more air displacement if you airstrafe without holding forward, so I recommend holding forward for about half the fall, correcting placement with your airstrafe, and then back to holding W for the wall engage. As I fall into the wall, I engage with forward, and then transfer the momentum by jumping and using the angled platform. I then slide on the platform I am launched towards, jump off of the platform to maintain momentum, strafe into the wall with left, and then as I grab the wall I wall bounce and strafe towards the end with right. You also want to aim for about halfway down the ramp so your momentum is as horizontal as possible relative to the platform you're aiming for. If you're struggling with this part of the map, I highly recommend slowing it down. You want to grab the wall for as lowest time as possible and instantly transition to the momentum redirection. You can do this by falling into the wall without looking at it and then find the timing for looking direct into the wall, briefly pressing a forward input, and then transition to the momentum shift with a jump. I recommend practicing just this fall onto the platform so you can consistently land with speed onto the platform. The next step is then to slide jump off the next platform in order to set up a wall bounce. I recommend trying a few times at getting the speed into the slide jump, as just trying to go for the wall bounce immediately can be a lot if you are struggling. Finally, once you've conserved momentum into the slide jump, it's just a wall bounce to finish off the map, airstrafe left into the wall, and then jump and airstrafe into the finish. So that's the end of the guide. Hopefully it helps with any parts you're struggling with. As I said in the beginning, this is not a guide for how to speedrun the map, and I've yet to get a deathless run myself. So I asked Silas if I could use their run to show what a complete run can look like. Thanks to them for the video, and I hope you guys appreciate the skill behind it.